Hi there everybody, this is Vicky from Eternal Athena Tarot and thanks for being here. It's been a while since I last put up a video and I do apologize for that. Back in September I started teaching an introductory tarot course at a local metaphysical shop not too far from my house, and so I've been busy writing a workbook for that and putting together the lessons and recruiting students and researching, taking notes, and all of those things. So I apologize that my YouTube channel's been pretty dormant of late, but I'm hoping to fix that now. And I did want to make a new video to share some thoughts that I have about the tarot in general. This week I've been thinking a lot about the Justice card. And part of the reason why I've been thinking about this card is because we are just fresh off the heels of one of the most contentious presidential elections I've ever seen. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who are, discovering that friends and family of theirs voted for the candidate who was not their candidate. And this has brought up in, myself included, many people myself and many people around me, lots of hard feelings towards people. There's been a lot of people defriending people on Facebook or getting into a lot of arguments on Facebook, not seeing eye to eye. And I personally have never seen America so divided before. So since the election occurred, I've been thinking a lot about what tarot can do to help us understand what's going on and also help us heal from all this divisive discourse that we're seeing in the news almost every single day. And how can we find a middle ground, or at least if we can't see eye to eye, can we at least try to understand where the other person's coming from? And a great card to work with if we are trying to do those things, I believe, is the Justice card. So let's, I'll just start off by talking a little bit about the card's symbols, or what we just generally see on the card. So the imagery on this card it's like a courtroom scene. And we see sitting in the middle of the two pillars, the figure of Lady Justice, who is quite androgynous looking, although many people attribute this card to being like a feminine card. It's Lady Justice, it's not a man. She sits in the front of this card, and she sits in between two pillars. Justice is first and foremost a card that speaks to the principle of balance. Even as number 11, always pay attention to the numerology, the numbers on each card. Number 11, in and of itself, if you just look at the numbers, it's a very balanced number. It's very symmetrical as a number because both sides look the same. And this card also, as number 11, falls smack in the middle of the Major Arcana, because the Major Arcana is comprised of 22 cards total. So if we arrange the Major Arcana tarot cards in 3 lines of 7 cards, what we would find is that the Justice card falls not only smack in the middle of that figure, but also the fact that it represents a turning point. So this card, the card that comes before this card is the Wheel of Fortune, the card that comes after it is the Hangman. So in the Wheel of Fortune, we are making a turn from one state to another. And then Justice, we're learning how to see the side that is opposite to us. We're learning how to understand there are 2 sides to every story and put aside our personal biases. And then the Hangman, which comes right after this card, is a card that is all about seeing things from a different perspective, an upside down perspective, or the enlightenment that comes from being able to put yourself in another person's shoes. So this card falls smack in the middle of all of that. And it, in essence, is about figuring out not only your role in a situation. When this card comes up in a reading, it can quite often indicate, you may be wanting to point the finger at somebody else and blaming someone else for a negative outcome where something is concerned. But Justice, when this comes up, can signify that maybe we need to take a look at ourselves, an honest look at ourselves, and put aside our personal biases. Quite often, our personal biases are privilege, our egos, right? We are here to protect our egos. So that's what many of us try to do, sometimes unsuccessfully, or sometimes successfully. But this card, its astrological correspondence is Libra, and this is actually very much all the things that Libra stands for. So we think about the sign that comes in polarity to Libra, which is Aries, and that's associated with the Emperor in the tarot. The Emperor is all about the ego, as is Aries. And then Libra, the opposite sign, is all about partnership. So this could be about, this card when it comes up, when you think about partners, to be in an intimate partnership with anybody or to work well with somebody, it takes very much being able, an ability on your end to compromise your personal values, which is one of the things that this card is about. It's about being able to see a different person's perspective. Even if you don't understand where that person is coming from, it's you being able to acknowledge the fact that maybe the objective fact that people are different, and then I need to be able to respect those differences in terms of put my own interest aside. That's very much what the Justice card stands for. What are some of the prominent symbols in this card? Well, I really like how Justice sits on kind of like a platform. It's gray, it looks concrete, and she's sitting in between these two pillars. So Justice is one of the, what I call the gateway cards of the tarot, and the other gateway cards of the tarot are, if you look at them, I happen to have High Priestess out here, so the High Priestess is one of them. And then the other one would be the Hierophant, number 5. And, oh, here he is. I just happened to pull him out. This is the Hierophant, number 5. So what these cards share in common is that everyone sits in between two pillars, meaning that this is the point of initiation to gain some sort of new knowledge that will prepare us to move on to the next step in our journey. So in terms of the gateway that the Justice represents, the Justice card represents, this is very much about being able to view the world objectively. Libra is an air sign. This is an air card. Air always speaks to our mental faculties and our ability to rationalize, our ability to learn things in a formal fashion versus being able to intuit things, which would be more of like a watery suit of cups type of situation. Justice is in praise of the ability to emotionally detach from a situation, to remain bias-free, to be able to evaluate a situation without bringing your own interest into the mix, because that is what's fair. And it's very much resembles a courtroom scene. When I see the gray platform, I see the gray pillars. This is very much for me, brings up like the feel of cold concrete. So sometimes I meditate on this card, and every time I do that, I go to this kind of like a cold room where we're not being nurtured or coddled, or no one's sugarcoating anything, but we're getting the truth, the hard truth, or the good truth. Justice is completely detached from the outcome in the sense that she wants to show us what is versus what we want to see. And I think that's actually a very a beautiful thing. Justice, when this card comes up, it could describe situations that perhaps we're not very happy with, that maybe the outcome did not come about the way we hoped it would. Regardless of how we feel, though, Justice always assures us that things turned out the way they should have turned out. And that's also a beautiful thing. So circling back and going back to how we can use this card and the principles of this card, let me go over some of the symbols really quick before I do that. So we got the concrete pillars, the concrete platform, which for me is about coldness, emotional detachment. Notice that they're gray. Gray is the color that comes between white and black. If we mix white and black together, like in paints, for instance, we end up with gray. And that represents the gray zone. The fact that if we want to understand how the world works and engage the complexity of life, we need to drop the tendency to see things from a black and white perspective, and understand that it's safe to bring nuance to a situation, or understand that there is a middle ground, there's something going on between. But I thought that was a really great metaphor for thinking about this election, because when we tend to cast the people on the opposition as the enemies and not acknowledging their humanity, or acknowledging that they may oppose us, but they're also coming up from a place of legitimate grievances or a place of legitimate fear. I think that's something that if we work with this card, Justice, we can cultivate that capacity within ourselves to at least understand where someone else is coming from. And we see that in the grayness of the pillars. What I also love about this card is a card that speaks about acknowledging our blind spots. So one of the hallmark symbols of the Justice card is the veil that Lady Justice sits in front of. And so she faces, the viewer. If I'm looking at this card, she's facing me, and she sees what's straight ahead of her, right? But there is behind her, she's not looking behind her, and then to boot, there's this veil that's covering up what's going on in the background. So we really can't see. We really don't know what's going on in this room beyond like what we could, in our immediate viewing range. So that to me adds an element of mystery to this card. What lies behind that veil? And I think what lies behind that veil is the concept of truth with a capital T. And I say truth with a capital T because that acknowledges this idea of objectivity, that it is possible to arrive at concrete facts about the world that everybody can agree on, like I can agree that this is, a crystal ball, like a little crystal amethyst ball that like I can touch, feel, and see, and then everyone can see that's purple. That's an objective fact, for example. And so in order to arrive at objective truth, we need to be able to not only measure things like scientifically, but also to be able to get multiple viewpoints. For anyone who's ever seen the movie Rashomon, it's this classic Japanese movie about a rape, actually, that happens. And several people witness this assault go down, and the movie centers on a trial that occurs. And during the course of this trial, we get multiple versions of basically the same event. But the versions of this story and what people saw and what they made, the meaning they made of it is so vastly different from person to person, that this movie really shows us that, it really questions the idea of what is truth. So when I talk about truth with a capital T, I'm talking about this idea of objective truth, whether or not you agree that's actually a thing. But, the saying, there's their truth, there's my truth, and the real truth is somewhere in between. That's exactly what this card stands for. So, in a court of law, we are trained, if you're an attorney, you're trained to get testimony from multiple people, right? And it's from those accounts that we construct what happened, what was the event that happened, break it down. That's how we arrive at a decision that's going to help us yield the right outcome that serves everybody. As the card that corresponds to the astrological sign of Libra, you can also think about some of the qualities that Librans, if you have a lot of Libran friends in your life, some of their personality traits we can definitely assign to the Justice card. So for example, the idea of fairness, when this card comes up, you can describe a person who has to get everyone's opinion before rendering a decision. I know that I used to have a former boss of mine was a Libra, and he was someone who I regarded as, he did a very good job of getting everyone's opinion before he rendered a decision that would affect the whole entire unit. So that's a Libra type of thing. Libras are also known as the peacemakers of the zodiac, and you can think about Justice as the peacemaker of the tarot. And so by the peacemaker, what they want to do is they want to find compromise. They do not like stirring conflict. They do not like dealing with fights or aggression. They want everyone to be at harmony with one another. And so they teach us personality-wise how to be diplomatic in our speech, how to approach somebody else in a conciliatory way that is not does not put them on the defensive, or that is not construed as like we're coming at them to attack them. Libras are renowned for their charm and their ability to communicate with folks in a way that makes them want to open up, or in a way that engages a partnership, like a two-way partnership. When this card comes up, some of the lessons that we're learning in our lifetime are we're learning how to do things in a balanced way, how to acknowledge other people's viewpoints, how to give up sometimes some of the things that we want in order to make a partnership work or in order to support a greater cause. So how can we work with this card in the in our lives, in our daily lives, in order to find a common meeting ground with those with whom we disagree? Well, I'm a really big fan of meditation, and I'm a really big fan of learning about symbols, and I do believe that the tarot cards express archetypical truths And if we just take a moment to simply look at its image on a daily basis, that we can, receive messages from spirit, receive messages from our subconscious selves or our higher selves, that will help guide the way. So what I suggest you do is think about all the things I said, earlier on in this video about how this card helps us see the other person's point of view. It's also, I forgot to mention, and also an air card. So as an air card, it's about the principle of emotional detachment. Notice that the sword, I forgot to talk about the sword. The sword is an air sign. It signifies our mental capacities, our intellect, ideas, communication, how we present ourselves to the world. That's an air type of thing. And so this is all about taking our, putting our personal preferences aside to understand where someone else is coming from, at least being able to hear them out. Again, Libras are excellent listeners. They always want to know what is on the other person's mind. So if we can at least, calm down and not get too emotional about the situation, and at least hear the other person out, so we, at the very best, or at least at the very least, understand from their own words, where they're coming from. That's exactly what justice helps us do. So what I suggest, if you want to soak in some of these energies and soak in some of the lessons that justice has to offer us as a card, perhaps taking this card out of your tarot deck, putting it on your nightstand, and asking your guides before you go to bed, what does justice have to say to me about where, how I can use this card in my life to improve my relationships with other people, or to understand where somebody else is coming from if I'm having a hard time getting that, or if I need some help with a conflict resolution situation. And this is a great card to work with. So you can prop this on your nightstand, or put it in a place where you're going to see it every single day, like maybe on your dresser, so that when you're dressing in the morning, glance at it, and then just ask your guides for signs, for synchronicities, and or even in your dreams, if you go to bed at night, ask for a dream that's going to bring a message regarding justice and how justice is playing out in your own personal life. And of course, when you're working with this card, if something does happen, be sure to write it down in a journal. Take good notes. The best way to engage the universe in a dialogue is to always jot down any symbols, synchronicities, or signs that you happen to notice into your journal. And then when you go back in time and review your notes, you're definitely going to notice patterns appear in your life. So those are my thoughts on justice for today. And if you have any comments, you can leave them down below in the comments section. And if you want to visit me on the interwebs, you can find me at eternalathena.com. I placed a link in the video so that you can just click on that link and find my blog. That is where I blog, and that is also where I offer readings. All right, so that is all that I have for today. I will thank you so much for listening, and I will see you guys later. Bye.